Welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. And this week, we're gonna have to actually talk about it more, aren't we? It's for a good reason, I promise. Cue the music! Hello there, Capers, and as I said, welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast for a place to hang your cape. My name's Scott James Merridew, and this is the show where we talk about various geek and nerd-related topics and are joined each week by a very special different guest. My guest today is Jordan Thomas. How you doing, Jordan?
Hey, yeah, I'm all good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good, as one can be, stuck in a bungalow in rural Oxfordshire.
I guess there's probably worse places to be, you know? At least you probably get to go on some nice walks in the countryside.
Well, for nice walks, meaning, fairly nice treks down country paths until you uncover these small, what's the thing I'm looking for? Like terrain that's just entirely covered with horse shit.
Okay, well, very pleasant.
Literal. Why do people still ride horses? What is the benefit? Do the horses just love it? Is that it? Just let them go. We've got other methods of transportation.
Yeah, I guess it must be some kind of attempt to connect with the old ways or something. Although, I mean, maybe with everything how it's going now, we might be back to horses before too long.
Oh, God. Oh, because bikes have stopped working all of a sudden. Well, maybe. Can you catch coronavirus from horses? I doubt it.
Well, they've said you can catch it from cats, or that cats can get it. So, I mean, I don't know how close a cat is to a horse. But
finally some more good news. Because I hate cats.
I've got a cat that kind of lives on the roof opposite my apartment, which I've been trying to slowly lure over as a pet for the quarantine, but it's pretty suspicious of the various treats I keep kind of tossing its way. Particularly hard bit of cheese, I think, freaked it out.
What, you're giving me the food that my food eats? What's wrong with you? Oh, God. But here's the thing. The past few episodes of Podcapers, we've inevitably, brought up a few jokes about coronavirus and quarantine and all this stuff. But recently I've been trying to move away from that because, we're surrounded by news about that all the time. And I want Capers to have a bit of a respite from it, a bit of a break. And then you come along and decide to call your brand new comic Quarantine.
Yeah, I can only apologise for that one, I guess. I definitely avoided anything virus related, so I've just focused on the stuck inside bit as opposed to anything a bit more grim than that.
But that is such a huge part of this. I mean, the whole thing with coronavirus is twofold. It's the actual, virus that's making people be ill, and the effect that's having on healthcare workers and all these sorts of things. But it's also the people who are healthy but stuck at home if they want to remain healthy, and it's giving them cabin fever. It's driving people crazy. It's driving my dad crazy. Do you know what my dad did today? And this is just today. He built some decking in the garden by himself, alone. He just got wood and he made himself a fully functional bit of decking. Who does that?
Oh, that sounds pretty good. I don't know, there's nothing wrong with a bit of decking. In terms of the overall famous stories of cabin fever, I don't think putting down some decking is gonna make the top 50.
Yeah, but in comparison, I've spent today maybe partially doing some stuff for this episode, but also just dicking around on my PlayStation. Like two very different kinds of people in this quarantine. Now I want to talk more about this brand new spanking comic of yours. Before that, we've got to get into the news. And some big news coming out recently is the announcement of the cast of the brand new Sandman audio play.
Yeah, no, I saw about that. There's is Taron Egerton playing Lucifer?
No, Taron Egerton, close. Taron Egerton is playing John Constantine, although he
Ah,
would
that's
also
the
be
one. Yes,
very
yes.
good at. Do you know who's playing Lucifer? Michael Sheen.
Ah, yeah, yeah. Because I thought of the Good Omens connection where he kind of played the other side in that, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. In fairness, when you look at Michael Sheen in real life, his sort of personality, he fits Devil slightly better. He's a chaotic goblin man, and I love him. But the cast list is it's actually quite amazing. It's Riz Ahmed as the Corinthian, Kat Dennings as Death, Dan Edgerton, as I said, John Constantine. James McAvoy is Morpheus. I am 100% okay with that. Samantha Morton is Urania Blackwell. Bibby Newworth is the Siamese Cat. Andy Serkis is Matthew the Raven. Michael Sheen, as I said, Lucifer. Justin Vivian Bond is Desire. Arthur Darvill is William Shakespeare. Just throw him in there, why not? William Hope is Dr. Destiny. Matthew Horn is Hob Galding. Sue Johnston, Unity Kincaid. Patterson Joseph, the demon Coronazon. Josie Lawrence as Mad Hetty. Anton Lesser as Dr. John Hathaway. Joanna Lumley is Lady Joanna Constantine.
Ah, okay. I haven't seen
Okay.
that one.
And to top that off, Miriam Margolyes is Despair. And the Martian Manhunter himself, John Jones, is played by Reginald D. Hunter. And all of this is narrated by Neil Gaiman himself.
Yeah. Oh, no, it sounds pretty cool. Although I have to be honest and admit that the Sandman is actually a huge hole in my comic reading. I'm a massive Vertigo fan. I've read loads of Neil Gaiman stuff. But I think I've always wanted to own those really beautiful, like they're bigger than the omnibus, the absolute editions of it, and they're super expensive. So I've never like gone for any of the cheaper ones. So I'm like, one day I'm going to buy myself those like beautiful absolute collections, but it has meant that I've never read it. So I might have to delve into something a little bit cheaper just so I can read it before the play comes out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same. I've read a few Sandman stories, like the early ones, the first ones, but for me as well, it's kind of a big hole, which is weird because I absolutely love Neil Gaiman. He's one of my favorite writers of all time. I think he's amazing. But it's just one of those things. Also, it's kind of weird in terms of maybe not canonicity, but the place that Sandman has. Is he part of the Vertigo universe? But then he's sort of been integrated into DC due to the fact that now John Constantine's part of DC, and also Martian Manhunter's in this, I guess. So it's kind of weird. And, I've made no secret about the fact that I'm not the biggest fan of DC, so it's kind of warded me off it. But I do want to get into it at some point.
Yeah, I think a lot of those early Vertigo books, they kind of started in the DC universe, and then they kind of moved into their own thing. Like Swamp Thing, when Alan Moore was writing it, was kind of very in the DC universe with Batman appearing, but by the end he'd kind of moved a bit away from that. And Hellblazer, like when Constantine got his own series, like that's very much its own thing away from DC. So I think maybe Sandman kind of crosses the line a bit. So you've got some earlier stuff with some characters from the main DC universe in it, but then it kind of breaks away from that. But the thing I really love, I love Mike Carey's Lucifer. I don't know if you ever read that, but that kind of span out of it with with Lucifer leaving hell to start a bar in LA. And that's an awesome comic. So I'm pretty sure I'd really love Sandman, but I just need to sit down and because there's a lot of issues, right? It's a long old series.
I mean, I think it's been ongoing since it first came out.
Yeah, they've rebrought a lot of stuff back recently, haven't they? Under a Sandman kind of heading, they've relaunched a bunch of stuff. But I guess I'd probably just try and start with the Neil Gaiman written stuff and think about the extra stuff from there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the closest thing I've got to Sandman stuff recently is not by reading the Lucifer comics, but by watching like the first 2 seasons of the Lucifer TV show, which like takes the devil and thinks, okay, what's the coolest thing we can do with the devil as a character? let's put him in a so-so police procedural show.
Yeah, I couldn't bring myself to watch that. I was so sad when I saw the trailer for that show. I stayed away from it. I
It's
stayed
not
the hell away
bad.
from it.
It's not bad. I mean, I don't blame you for staying away from it. It's honestly not bad. It's just another American police procedural TV show where a kooky man gets partnered up with a no-nonsense policewoman / FBI agent, and they solve crimes together. And honestly, the most interesting part of the episodes is the supernatural aspects, but it's not the crimes. It's none of that is at all interesting. And you can tell there's some aspects of it where they really come up with some creative things. Like there's a kid character in the show that's the daughter of the police lady, and Lucifer is always really smooth and charming and cool and in control with everyone else around him, except for the kid character. He just doesn't know what to do. And it makes sense because he's the Lord of Hell. He's spent most of his existence in hell, and there are no children in hell. It's actually really kind of clever. And it was
I mean,
distracting
I've
from
met a
that
few
when we have
children.
to
I'm
see,
pretty sure
okay,
she's
so
in hell.
I was the child who should have been in hell.
Okay, I mean, the comic's so dense and into the
But
Bible and stuff that, I mean, you could never make the actual comic as a TV series. It would be the most, like, unwelcoming to casual viewers of pretty much anything out there, besides maybe, like, Grant Morrison's Invisibles or something even more crazy like that.
oh yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I grant you. But then if that is okay, so if we can't do a faithful adaptation of the comic because it's too dense, then why would we bother to do anything at all? Like, I'm fine if you want to do a show with like the devil solving crimes. Fine, maybe don't claim it has a connection to the comics when it clearly doesn't have it. I mean,
Yeah, I don't
the
really get the
closest thing we've
point.
got to a connection with there's a mild connection with the rest of the for want of a better DC Vertigo multiverse with the recent Crisis Elseworlds number 15, however, whichever one, where a bunch of other DC characters from like CW and stuff hop dimensions and they end up going to Lucifer's dimension, which incidentally is called Dimension like 666, which I thought was slightly funny, but anyway.
Yeah.
What was it? Or did I just make that up in my head? I don't know. I don't care. I've moved on. Like I said, I've only watched the first 2 seasons and I got bored. Want to move on from that to the rest of the news. We have got some brand spanking new release dates from some stuff that we really want and some stuff that we're just like, okay, do we care anymore? And what I'm talking about specifically is Doom Patrol Season 2 is scheduled to be released on June 25th, which is great because a lot of TV shows have been sort of put on hiatus right now due to coronavirus. So it's great that we're going to get something new. But I think what's most interesting about the recent release dates given is that New Mutants has got a confirmed release date for, I believe it's, the 28th of August. Do you give a shit, Jordan?
Okay, I mean, I was sure that was just some kind of made up thing that didn't really exist.
I don't blame you. I do not blame you. If I hadn't seen the trailer, and I would have thought, oh, maybe not. But yeah, no, Mutants is, I guess, going ahead. Fine, we're going to get it in August. I'm not going to hold my fucking breath, but it's there. So, I can't be disappointed by Fox any more than I've already have been, with something X-Men related. It's not possible. But there we have it. We've got supposed release dates for something good and something that hopefully we'll get and hopefully will be all right. Cross fingers. But something actually much more recent that I want to talk about, this only happened in the last couple of days, it's really fascinated me, is a new tech demo released by Epic Games / the Unreal Engine guys for next-gen graphics. Have you managed to have a look and see this?
No, I have no idea what this is.
So, you've heard of the Unreal Engine, right? I don't know if you're a bit of a gamer or anything like that.
Yep, that sounds vaguely familiar, but I'm not a massive gamer for the last few years.
Well, it's a game engine. It powers the game. It can be on multiple games, and because now they've recently announced the new Xbox console and the new PS5. People are like saying, well, we want better and a more updated graphics. I want to be unable to distinguish real life and Mortal Kombat. And so they've come up with this new tech demo featuring this random character wandering through a pretty damn impressive photorealistic game environment. And talking about how everything is lovingly rendered and superbly detailed, and talking about how there's now triangles in the pixels. I don't understand most of the terminology, but I highly recommend, if you haven't seen this tech demo, to watch it just for curiosity's sake, because it does look breathtakingly impressive. And then the cynical little goblin that lives on my shoulder pipes up and says, well, the actual games won't actually look... The gremlin sounds a lot similar to the people who are crying out for better graphics. The graphics in the actual games won't look as good as the tech demo because they never do. And I'm like, you're right, little gremlin on my shoulder. I know you're right, but can you not just let me enjoy it? And... This is the thing with I know you're not a gamer, so sorry if this is boring the fuck out of you, but I want to talk about this. This is my show and this is my soapbox.
Go for it. Go wild.
I sunk a fair couple of £100 into my PS4, both in games and the actual console itself, and also with a hard drive update. I purchased like a couple of terabyte internal hard drive for it, just so I have enough games on it, because that's how many games I got. And I've had it for quite a few years now, and I'm willing to invest more money into a PS5 because I am a PlayStation boy forever. Fuck you, Xbox. We've got all the best exclusives. We've got Spider-Man. You've got nothing. But anyway, and I'm willing to do that as long as the leap forward in graphical quality is a leap forward and not a step forward. I don't want to just get like a mildly, slightly better looking game. I want much better looking games. I mean, I don't really play games for graphics anyway, but if you're going to release a new console in order to give us better graphics, give us fucking better graphics. And also, I say I'm a PlayStation boy. In Xbox's Microsoft defense, they've recently announced something called Smart Delivery. Have you heard of this?
No.
So Smart Delivery is basically where they say, like, okay, if you buy a game of ours on current consoles, on the current Xbox and the current Xbox, and you then, it comes out later on the next generation, the Xbox Series 1 or whatever the fuck they're calling it, then you can upgrade to that new version for free. And suddenly, all the consumers of the world poke their head up from the newspapers like, yes! And all the, game developers and all the corporations of the world pop their head up from the newspapers like, what? And so a lot of consumers are really happy about this, and I'm really happy about it. And a lot of companies are kind of not up in arms, just a bit... What the fuck are you doing? Giving away games for free? Like, why would you do that? Well, because, it's good, it's good looking out for the consumer. It means we're not fleece people. It builds up, good for the brand. It's good for, the economy to a certain extent. It's just kind of good for everyone. Yeah, but you could get them to pay twice for the same game. Yeah, but that's not a good thing. But we get more money. Well, good for you, but what about everyone else? Fuck everyone else, including your customers. Yes!
Especially our customers.
I'd like to point out that I say, especially our customers. This has been a public service announcement by EA. EA, give us your money. So that is some good news, and I'm hoping that the cynical goblin on my shoulder is wrong, that this sort of tech demo is very much representative of the quality of games, at least the quality of graphical games that we're going to get. Because there's so many games I want to get out that's coming this year. The remaster/remake of Destroy All Humans. Did you ever play that game when you were younger?
Destroy? No, I don't think so. I was massive into that. I love Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil, all the very kind of story based stuff were like my main favorites.
Oh, 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 there is a huge story behind Destroy All Humans. Basically, there's an alien called Cryptosporidium who comes down to Earth to destroy all humans. And he
Well
does
titled.
this by use of very well titled. And he does this through a mix of, subterfuge, mind control, a bit of social commentary about America in the 1950s, and also an anal probe gun.
Okay. I'm getting where the interest levels lie.
In all seriousness, it's a very good game, very funny game. I'm looking forward to the remake of that. But even more so than that, I'm looking forward to, I'm sure you'll have heard of this one, Cyberpunk 2077.
Yes, yeah, that one I have seen pop up on various feeds.
I want it. I want it now. I'm supposed to have it now. It was originally supposed to be released in March, and it got delayed way before, COVID-19 happened, to all the way to September. So now I'm just on the edge of my seat, just like Cartman in that one episode of South Park, just like, come on, I want it. And so I'm just waiting, and I don't want to buy these games twice. I'm sure. I mean, here's the thing: late stage console games and early stage next gen console games usually don't look that different in terms of graphical quality. This is why I want the big leap forward. So the idea of having smart delivery is, I think, a really consumer friendly way to just make sure that this not great industry, because I love video games, but the video game industry is not that great nowadays when you look at crunch time and things like that, is sort of addressing some of the problems, rebalancing some aspects, and hopefully making things just a little bit better. And we need that right now in these uncertain times, as everyone clichéingly calls it. We need little pockets of joy, hope, and inspiration, or even just something just mildly entertaining to keep us going. And speaking of mildly entertaining, let's talk about quarantine.
Segue.
I'm very good at those. I don't know if you noticed yet. So, for the Capers at home, could you please tell everyone what quarantine is all about?
Okay, so Quarantine is a one-shot sci-fi comic, and what makes it especially special is that we've got 27 different artists all working on the interiors of the story. So every single page of the story is drawn by a different artist. So we've got an amazing mix
I
of
thought it was 28.
Well, 28, including Derek Robertson doing the cover. Yeah, so when you take Derek,
Sorry, you cut out for a second there.
Sorry. So it's 28 when you include Derek Robertson doing the cover, and 27 inside the book. And then we've also got a couple of pin-up artists as well. So there's going to be probably, depending on how many stretch goals we do, we're going to be up to about 30, 31 artists by the time you get your package through the post.
I mean, I don't want to say like we should call up the Guinness Book of World Records or anything, but is this the most amount of artists that's worked on a story that's not an anthologies thing?
I mean, I feel like I've seen a few comics do this. Like, I know Tom King, I think one of his Batman issues had like a different artist doing kind of a splash page image each page, but they're only 20-page stories nowadays in the DC comic stuff. So it'd definitely be ahead of anything that's been released in the last kind of decade or so from any of the majors, I would think. But yeah, definitely up there. I've not seen anything with more artists working on one story.
Yeah, well, in that case, I would keep an eye out for that sort of thing, because that's a great slogan to sell this book, world record holder.
Yeah, I'll have to get Googling as soon as we're done with this. I think I might have missed a trick on some of the marketing campaign. I should have spoken to you earlier on.
You should have come to me straight off the bat. I know what I'm talking about.
You've got all the anal probe computer games information. You've got all the marketing plans.
Oh, yeah.
You're covering a lot of bases.
I I am a fountain of fucking knowledge, Jordan. I am the depository for all human wisdom and intellect. You know this about me.
That's a beautiful image.
Because oh god, I just imagine myself as like that owl from Avatar: The Last Airbender, just surrounding myself with knowledge, but all of it is wrong. Oh god! But you have worked on something similar, multi artists that is, with Cadaver's World's Gone to Hell.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many artists exactly that was, because I know Edward Bentley did a few different stories. So there were, because there was 12, 13. So yeah, I think there must have been like 12 artists in that one. Yeah, I mean, that was guys doing whole stories. So obviously there's even more management to go into that. But yeah, I guess the management side of this has been quite a fun, interesting part. I set up a Slack channel so that everybody could chat and share their work as they went and stuff like that. And that's been really cool because you'll go on and see people chatting amongst themselves. There'll be like Gary Erskine, who's worked on like Hellblazer, which was one of my favorite series of all time, and he's doing the covers for Sabrina currently. He'll be chatting about like process with Russell Mark Olson, Gustavo Vargas, like what pens they use, how they do their roughs, how they kind of put the pages together. So that whole like kind of, there's so many people, it's created a bit of a mini community, which I guess has been a pretty cool thing in this time when we're all seeing maybe one or two other people every day, to kind of have a place where we can all go and chat comics and art and putting this story together that everybody's really gotten behind.
Yeah, I mean, we use Slack over here at Place to Hang Your Cape as well, and it is a great communications tool, as you say, and we do need that in this sort of thing. And it's also great that, as I say, you're the artist, and we're going to talk about the artist in more detail later on, been communicating with each other. But I want to know is what exactly is the story?
So the story, it starts page 1, which we've got up on the Kickstarter campaign page. There's Ballard Apartments, a big kind of 19-story apartment building surrounded by this weird kind of scientific equipment. The Loon family are looking out onto it, wondering what's going on. Then there's a zap, and the next thing they know, the apartment building has been quarantined and is floating in the space of an alternate universe. They don't know anything apart from that something is wrong in the building. They've not been given any more information than that. And from there, we follow the family as they try and deal with being locked in their apartment for weeks on weeks. There's guard bots that patrol the hallways and keep them inside, and they pretty much just have to eat this weird goo stuff from this strange food dispenser in their apartments, and they're cut off from the rest of society. And so, yeah, I guess we can all probably empathize a bit with some of that now. So that's kind of the part that I really took from what's been going on, is just this idea of just when you're suddenly just told, okay, that's it, you've got to stay in your apartment with the couple of people that you live with, and that's the only contact you're having.
Well, I'm supposed to stay here all the time with my family? Where I live? Are you insane?
That was a funny thing I remember seeing on a lot of social media when this all happened, where people were like freaking out after a couple of days about the kids being around or having like grandparents there. And it's like, you got a real vibe that people are not overly infused by their family members. Like a few people just being like, actually, I quite like spending time with my children. It's not that big a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting the impact it's having. I mean, in fairness, for some people, I get it because the children are out of school, but they've still got to work. So for some people, it is a genuine struggle. For other people, they're in a relatively good situation. They just hate their children. So it's just it's weird. And oh god, and also I like to emphasize. I think we can all emphasize with, and as I say, considering what's going on, but also as someone who's been through the British education system and has had to have school lunches, I appreciate the fact that they are now subsist entirely on goo. And that's what I got.
Yeah, there's multiple colours, so they get some different colours each day. No, I mean, I never had it. I was a
Oh,
lunchbox
thank
kid,
God.
but I think I've seen it. I remember other people having it, some kind of mashed up potato with some liquid.
God, I transitioned to lunchbox when I went to secondary school. I got my own lunches then, but when I was in primary school, particularly my last primary school, which this isn't relevant, but I just want to mention it because I hold a grudge, is a Church of England primary school. I mean, we got school lunches, and they were. I'm not saying they were literal shit, but if they discovered human, DNA and that sort of stuff, like if it was turned out to be Soylent Green, I would not be surprised.
That's worrying.
Speaking of iconic sci-fi horror, you mentioned they were called the Ballad Apartments. Now, is that a reference to J.G. Ballard's novel High Rise?
Yeah, and just Ballard in general, like most of his books, like The Drowned World and various other stuff. He had a type of novel that he wrote, and it does generally involve stuff just being messed up without us having any clear idea why, and people having to kind of suffer through it. Like in Drowned World, although they're not locked in one place, like you can kind of guess what the story is in terms of the waters have all come up. So people are pretty isolated in that they're kind of stuck in their little areas, depending on what the flooding situation is around. So yeah, he's done a lot of that. So it felt like a fair nod to him to name the building after the man himself.
Yeah, I'm just glad you didn't name it after his book Crash, because that makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, like leg fucking apartments or something like that. Oh, sorry, is this a swearing podcast? I'm not sure.
I don't. It is fucking hell a swearing podcast.
Okay, cool. Although leg fucking, I guess, takes on an extra level.
I mean, we don't swear very well, but we do it.
Don't know if you need special dispensation for that kind of body-related swearing.
I mean, if we do, I don't give a fuck. I don't care. Just go. I mean, if a very popular, mainstream author creates a book, Crash, which is about people who have a thing for car crashes and things like that. I think we're allowed to talk about that in excruciating, cringeworthy detail.
So really, we're quite cultural. This is quite a cultural section that we're having now.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. When people talk about culture, they think it's all hoity-toity. Oh, it's all so classic. Oh, it's Howard's End. It's all this sort of stuff. But a lot of culture is about, fucking and weird sex acts and murder and vice and leg fucking.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is the classic that I always whip out. Not what you're thinking. No, not that. Chaucer famously talked about, sex, death, murder, and farting.
Yeah, it's funny.
A lot of scatological humor.
Yeah, the stuff that used to be very popular, like back in the day, is like would be considered very lowbrow now. Like when you look into a lot of the humor in stuff like Chaucer, or even like Shakespeare, the types of jokes and a lot of that stuff. Like if you kind of did a modern adaptation and didn't mention that it was from Chaucer, people would just think you're doing kind of like men behaving badly, or something along those lines.
Well, I mean, they did that with Chaucer. I think a couple in like the 2000s or something. They did an adaptation set in modern day of his stories, including that one bit where a guy like talks to his girlfriend through a window while she's having it off with someone else. She sticks her arse out. He kisses it, gets really annoyed and offended, goes away, comes back later with a red hot poker. The boyfriend that she's having it off with sticks his ass out and he shoves it up his ass.
Yeah.
That happened.
That does happen.
I believe it happened to James Nesbitt. That was the guy who got a red hot poker stuck up his ass. In the story, obviously not in real life. I think he'd be talking a lot about that.
Yeah, I don't know how method he is. If it had been Robert De Niro, maybe who was doing the role, he might have been willing to go the full hog.
I can't.
Daniel Day-Lewis, maybe.
In that moment when you said that, all I wanted to do more than anything I've ever wanted in my life is to do a convincing Robert De Niro impression. But I know I can't. If you said Emperor Palpatine, Mickey Mouse, or the Joker, I'd immediately be reenacting that scene. But I can't, so I won't.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it's another level of impression having to do him with a red hot poker stuck up his ass as well, as opposed to maybe just a scene from The Godfather Part 2.
Yeah. Oh god! Now all I'm thinking about is Mickey Mouse and the Godfather. He doesn't die until my mother's dead, or whatever the line is. No one touches him until my mother's dead. I know it was you, Fredo. I can't. Anyway, back to quarantine. For the love of God, back to quarantine. Right. So that's the story, and obviously a lot of weird shit is going on in there. So, but we've got like one story. But as I say, 27 artists. So where did the idea to get all these artists on board exactly come from? Did you just think it would be a fun idea?
I think it came from Twitter, to be honest. I was just sat around scrolling through Twitter and saw some different artists passing some art back and forth that they'd been filling the time with when they weren't having to go to their day jobs and stuff like that. And I just kind of thought this might be a good time to grab hold of a bunch of people who I'd really like to work with and who normally are pretty busy. But I didn't want them to have to commit like tons of time to it. I thought there'd be more chance of it working and us getting it done in a nice kind of quick turnaround period if they only had to do the one page each. So yeah, I just sent out a message to like a group of around 9 artists that I'm kind of friendly with on Twitter, who I thought if I could get all those guys on board, that it would be quite easy to get more people, because they're people like Gustavo Vargas, Andy Bloor, Russell Mark Olson, Donna A. Black, Pete Taylor, people that have a lot of kind of respect in the small press world. So yeah, I thought if I could get those guys on board, then it would be pretty easy to find everybody else, and it would be a fun project to do, to see how everybody's different styles kind of work together.
Were you sort of surprised when so many artists said, absolutely, yes, I'd love to be part of it?
Yeah, definitely. Like because I had the idea, and very quickly, I think I had the idea, and then I spent about an hour thinking, oh, what kind of story would it be? And I live in Spain, so I'd already been in quite a tough lockdown for about 10 days or something at this point. So that was pretty much the only thing that I could think of.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, well, we've also we've only recently been allowed out for like a casual exercise walk. Like up until like 2 weeks ago, you were only allowed out to go to the shops or to get medicine. So it had been fairly full on. So there wasn't really much else generating in my head when I was trying to think up a story that would be relevant for now. But yeah, and I sent out this message to these guys, and I thought there was a fair chance that they were all going to say, sorry, we're too busy, or we're not interested. And actually all of them said yes very quickly. So then I was like, crap, I've actually got to fucking figure out how to do this. So it was positive, but also I was mildly terrified for the next kind of 24 hours whilst I was trying to figure it all out.
I can only imagine, like, oh crap, now there's stakes. Now I've got responsibilities and commitments. No. But I mean, it helps when you've got so many talented people working on it. And speaking of, I'm going to talk about all of them right now. And although before I do that, I want to point out, obviously in preparation for this episode, I've been looking at the Kickstarter. They've gone up, and that's given me a lot of information. But I saw the list of the artists, and then I went away and I did as much research as I could that I thought would be interesting to talk about on this show. And then I went back to the Kickstarter, scrolled down, and there was plenty of information already on the Kickstarter that I hadn't even seen. I spent literal hours doing research I didn't have to do.
Yeah, I spent ages putting in all those hyperlinks as well. That was a long time commitment. Originally, I just kind of copy and pasted in people's social media handles, and I was like, no, it'd be much more considerate to actually go through and put the hyperlink. It'd be more likely people will click on stuff and take a look at these amazing artist pages. So yeah, we've both spent a lot of time on it then.
Good. Yeah, but you had to. I didn't.
Yes.
I don't know. I
I'm
like
just
doing
trying to
research.
make
I
you
like
feel
making
better.
sure, no one can make me feel better about anything. But anyway, so because you did them in alphabetical order, I shall also do them in alphabetical order because that's the best kind of order. Just ask Nicolas Cage, he'll tell you. So we start with Ahmed Rafat. Apologies if I get any of these names mispronounced or anything. I do apologize. Now, they're an Egyptian creator, aren't they?
Yes, but based in the UK.
Based in the UK, and they've worked on Gorilla My Dreams and El Ospa. Is that how you say it?
I'm afraid I've only read it as well, so I can't help too much there. But that sounds good.
And so obviously, so this comic is about 40 pages, but each artist worked on about one page, right?
Yep, exactly 1 page. No one's done any more than that.
Okay, and that's because there's all sorts of ancillary materials that some of the artists have contributed, but also you've contributed that bulk out the novel.
Yeah, there's a lot of really beautiful design work. Like a lot of the artists, so that they can get the for drawing the characters, making sure that they stay consistent between the panels. They'll do some portraits and sketches to really get a hang of them. So we've got beautiful stuff by Russell, who did the original designs for all of the characters, because I thought we'd need a better thing than just me describing them, to make sure everybody drew people that looked more or less alike so you could tell from page to page. So Russell's done some beautiful design stuff, but then off their own backs, Donna A. Black did some beautiful portraits in her kind of mixed media style, which we'll be able to put in the book. Chris Matthews, you'll be able to see them on the campaign page. He did a bunch of really kind of almost photorealistic portraits of the different characters because he's going for that kind of style. Everybody's been sending through their roughs and their different designs for different parts of the book. So yeah, there's absolutely tons of bonus material that we've kind of got lying around that we'll be able to share with people and put into the back of the comic.
There's a lot of content for you, Capers, is what I'm getting at. It's really good. And so that Ahmed, as we said, Alex Moore, who's worked on Thunderbird and Psychics and Allies, Andre Satano, is that how you say his name?
I'd go Caetano, but again, I'm not certain. Andre's very nice, but we've only spoken over message, so I've never been able to clarify exactly how to pronounce his name. But he's a Portuguese artist. He does really beautiful children's books a lot of the time.
Yeah, I've seen some of this. I'm obviously doing the research. I've seen some of his works, including Volta and Braga em Risco. At least I think that's what it's called in the original Portuguese.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then we got Andy Bloor, who's worked on Wolfman and Midnight Man. Andy W.
And
Clift
Andy's
has actually
got a
been
new
on the
thing
show
coming
for
out.
Captain Cosmic.
Yeah, Andy Bloor's got a new comic coming out within the next couple of weeks, I think, on Kickstarter, which people should keep an eye out for, which looks really cool.
Ooh, get to it, Capers. Keep an eye out for that. That's Andy Bloor, Andy W. Clift, said Captain Cosmic. And then there's Anna Reedman, who's done things like School Yoda. Sorry, what's that?
Yeah, Anna Reedman? I think that's right. Yeah, it turns out I don't know how to pronounce all the names either.
I think at this point we could just call her.
Yeah, I've known her long enough. But
she's done things like. Obviously, things like School Yoda number 3 and Cormac McCarthy's Sutri, which looks really interesting.
She's amazing.
Benjamin
Her art
Philby,
is absolutely
Tomb of the
fantastic.
White Hawk.
She did a print for Frank at Home on the Farm, my previous series, and it's one of the most beautiful things we had for the book. Really gorgeous. She's proper talented.
Oh yeah, well, everyone, all the people on this list are talented. I've looked at all the work. Everyone here is fucking talented.
Yeah, no one's crept in because I owed them anything or they blackmailed me or anything. Everyone's very much there on merit.
Benjamin Fulmer said it's working on some zines like Abode and Anathemum. I don't know how to say it. Chris Matthews, you mentioned earlier, who, by the way, is a fucking bitch to research with that name. Chris Matthews. Most generic white man name ever. I don't know if he is actually, but it's because I think it doesn't help that there's like an American journalist who presents the show called Hardball called Chris Matthews. I couldn't find anything on him. Couldn't find anything, but apparently on the Kickstarter, I mentions he worked on something called Mugshots.
That's my next comic. We're about halfway through. Chris is like one of my oldest friends, and he's an amazing artist, but he absolutely hates social media or doing anything like that. But he's got a blog called Who Needs Style Anyway,
I understand his pain.
And he does. He can do really photorealistic work, but also very kind of Disney-inspired, cartoony stuff. Yeah, he's amazing, but he's as talented as he is disinterested in social media.
But fair enough. Well, I mean, that's probably why I didn't get it. I thought it was just because he had such a generic name, but it's not. It's just because he makes the very same decision nowadays to not get involved in social media. I can sympathize with that entirely. Then we got a Clara Meath, who has worked on something that looks fucking creepy as hell, but yet so fascinating. Edgar Allan Poe's The Conqueror Worm.
Yeah, I bought that one off of Kickstarter a couple of years ago. I've been following Clara on Instagram for years and always really wanted to work with her. So I'm excited to get a chance. She really reminds me of Gabrielle Rodriguez, the Lock and Key artist. If you look at kind of her line work and the way she does her characters, there's quite a lot of inspiration from there, I think. But yeah, she's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. And then someone else who you'll be very familiar with, Clark Bint, who worked on Frank at Home of the Farm and Murder Most Mundane.
Yeah, I didn't scare him off enough that he wouldn't come back, so that's good.
He returned. And then we got Craig Patton, worked on Killtopia.
Yeah, and he just delivered his page. You may have seen it online. I've been posting it a little bit, but it arrived a couple of days ago, and it's extraordinary.
Will be from him. And then we got Dan Erie, who also worked on Cadavers. Edward Bentley, as I say, you will know familiar with, also worked on Cadavers. And then we got Emma Kubert, part of, I guess we call it the Kubert dynasty of comic writers / artists, who's worked on Willowbrook and Inkblot and all sorts of stuff for DC. That must be pretty amazing to have her on board.
Yeah, she's really nice, actually. And I think she's still quite new to, like, she's had a few comics published recently, but a lot of her stuff's up on her Instagram. If you check that out, like, she does really gorgeous color work. And so I'm excited. I was speaking to her today, actually. She's just working on her page now.
Oh, brilliant. And then you mentioned before Gary Erskine.
Yeah, Gary Erskine.
I don't remember how you say his name.
Yeah, obviously a legend of the British comics community.
Now, he was part of the stretch goals for the Kickstarter, wasn't he?
Yeah, so we started with the first couple of stretch goals having a page by him and a page by Shaky Kane added if we hit certain targets, which we were pretty hopeful of. So yeah, we nailed those pretty quickly. So they've already, Gary's at the colours stage of his page, and Shaky Kane's already finished his page.
Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about Shaky Kane in a minute, but like I said, we're going this alphabetically. We're only on the G's, goddamn. And then we got Gavin Mitchell, who's worked on this thing called the Troll Tooth Wars, which I immediately, the second I heard that name, I wanted to buy, because it's called the Troll Tooth Wars. Holy fuck.
Yeah, and Rumrow, that's a famous one that he works on.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure he did, but I was distracted by Troll Tooth Wars.
Yeah, you didn't get any further than that.
You can't ignore a name like that. And then you mentioned another name earlier, Gustavo Vargas, who worked on things like Manu and, is it called Lima?
Lima, yeah,
it's that
Lima,
Simone movie all over again.
Trujillo. Yeah, he has his Peruvian cyberpunk trilogy, which won a lot of awards the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, people love Cyberpunk. We mentioned Cyberpunk 2077 earlier, but yeah, it's coming back in a big way. Maybe because our real life has started to mirror it eerily. Oh, God. And then we've got Louis Joyce, worked on Haven and Past the Last Mountain.
Yeah, he's an Australian artist, upping our country count for our global artist base.
It's a movement. It's a community. And we got Martin Simpson, worked on the Newman and also the Thought Bubble Anthology Collection.
Oh yeah, Martin's awesome. He does. I don't know if you see, like, he posts his process work online, and the amount of different like layers that go into him doing his pages is crazy. Like, he must have some kind of mad supercomputer in his house to be able to power it all. Like 5 different towers or whatever all surrounding him.
Well, that's something that's always fascinated me about drawing artistry in general. Just the amount of the complicated process to do even the most simplest things if you want to get it really involved, and it's always scared me. I have no drawing ability whatsoever, but if I did, that alone would be enough to ward me off it.
Yeah, I did art at college, and I can do a bit of a pencil drawing or maybe a bit of life drawing, but I think just the level of technology you need to understand to work in comics now would definitely count me out in the art stakes.
Yeah, I mean, well, I remember when I was a kid, because I was so into comics, I got given as I think a birthday or Christmas present, that classic book, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. And that was
Yeah.
incredibly complicated, even for, admittedly, a book that's aimed at children that didn't involve modern day digital computer technology. So I can only sadly imagine. I try and understand as best I can for this sort of job, but it's a big thing. And then we got Nick Prolix, which, by the way, is the fucking coolest name ever. It's like a cyberpunk name that you would give to like a cool cyber detective. Nick Prolix, Private Eye.
Yeah, he definitely had to do something cool with that name.
Yeah, absolutely. He's worked on things like Panonica. That looks really interesting. And then we've got Pete Taylor, who's done things like Silverbeard and Monster Kids.
Yeah, no, I love Silverbeard. I got that off Kickstarter a year or so ago, which is a really cool comic. So I was excited to have Pete involved. He's also a fellow podcaster like yourself.
Ooh, there's so many of us nowadays.
Yeah, I don't know. Are you guys friend? Is it a friendly thing with different comics podcasters, or is there like a competition element?
I mean, if there was a competitive element, I wouldn't be even in the league tables. I'd be the plucky underdog team that you see in so many half-baked British drama movies. Like, yeah, our comics podcast doesn't have all the big bucks, but we've got heart and spirit. That kind of shit. But
And we talk about anal probes and leg
no, it's not
fucking,
really competitive.
stuff like that.
We like to talk about anal probes and leg fucking, not all the smarty, arty, farty stuff. Oh, well, we're the really, really fancy comics podcast, and we don't have time for a riff-raff like you. Yeah. No one's like that. Everyone's awesome.
Cool.
But anyway, then we got Rory Donald. One of things like file days, crowd surfing, and according to the information I was able to find, also a inhabitant of Oxford who has been to Whitney, a town actually just like 10 minutes away from where I'm staying right now, and for that he is my everlasting sympathy.
Okay. Yeah, Rory's proper prolific. He's got like the Griff Gristle series. It's had like 3 issues, and
then
he did stuff for the Cadavers anthology. He he turns out work, that guy.
Mm-hmm. And then we've got Rosie Packwood, who worked on something called The Incredible Bun, which appears to be about a giant rabbit, which immediately sign me up for that.
Yeah, I think that's the concept.
Mm-hmm. And then we got someone else you mentioned earlier, Russell Mark Olson, who, if I didn't know better, I'd swear was some sort of weird scientific hybridization of my friend Mark Russell and Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. There's a bit. I could imagine that he'd look very nice in one of Jimmy Olsen's outfits. I could see him with a bow tie. He's a very respectable gentleman.
You hear that, Supergirl TV series? Give Jimmy Olsen a bow tie. Like, I don't care what else he looks like. Give him the bow tie. It's what he it's who he is. But I mean, he looks. I'm not familiar with Russell Mark Olson, but doing this research, I really should be, because he's working on things like Gateway City and Lady Hollywood. He looks really good.
Oh yeah, I mean Russell, he's a pretty big name really in the small press scene, like Gateway City. That's all him. That was written and drawn, coloured, lettered, all by him, and it won quite a few awards, I think. And yeah, he's
He looks so cool and pulpy.
Oh yeah, he's very cool and pulpy. He's got a new one that he's just working on at the moment called Jetpack Werewolf, which is literally about a werewolf that wears a jetpack. So that should be an exciting.
I'm sorry. There's a comic out there called Jetpack Werewolf, and no one thought to tell me.
Yeah, I think it's that's on the way. I think he's been writing issues like crazy for that. Another bonus of the pandemic is going to be the existence of Jetpack Werewolf.
I'm like Fry in that meme. Shut up and take my money. And then the last couple of artists that we've got here, two of the strangest fucking names I've ever heard in my life. Saint Yak.
Yeah. Did you check out his stuff?
Oh, he's got things like The Fourth Monkey and Box Masters.
And just his work in general is just incredible. Like if you look on his Instagram page, like the dynamicism and the detail he puts into his pages, like that guy's absolutely obscene.
Obscene in a good way.
Yeah.
Not in a fresh way.
Well, I don't know him personally too well to say what he gets up to in his kind of driving time. But yeah, definitely in an art way, he's positively obscene.
Great. I don't mean to kink shame anyone. You do what you like, as long as you don't cause car crashes. But then, someone else we mentioned before, and I mentioned before, Shaky Kane. Now, based on what I've seen of this guy, it's like if Jack Kirby and Michael Allred had a baby that was stoned all the time.
Yeah, that's a pretty good description. I mean, Shaky's like a pretty big legend in the British comic scene. I mean, he did some covers for Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol. He's worked on 2000 AD. He's had a couple of series out with Image.
He's done Judge Dredd.
Yeah, Judge Dredd, The Beef, if you've heard of that. Yeah, no,
I know some people thought The Beef might be missing at some point. People asking where it is.
Yeah, I think it's around those terms. He's such a nice guy as well, but yeah, a proper legend in the comic scene in the UK.
I mean, because this work is it's been described quite frequently as psychedelic, and I don't know why. Maybe I'm going crazy, well, crazier, but I've been really getting into sort of like psychedelic artwork and music recently, which is weird because I'm completely teetotal and never consume any mind-altering substances of any kind, but I find that sort of thing sort of fascinating.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look through some of Shaky's work, there's like Galactus at Tesco Express. I don't know if you've seen that one. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff that Shaky's bringing.
I think I did see that, actually, yeah.
And I've been talking with him a little bit about the possibility of doing something else together, and he seems quite keen to do like a full issue of something. So I've just been trying to think up the maddest possible idea that I could let Shaky loose on. As I think if you're going to work with Shaky, then you definitely need to kind of tap into that psychedelic landscape.
Well, I mean, looking at the story for Quarantine and looking at the other artwork that people have done for Quarantine, this seems to be right up his alley because it's absolutely brilliant. And to top it all off, obviously you've been writing the story for this, but also the cover, as you mentioned earlier, has been done by Derek Robertson, formerly of The Boys, Happy, and Transmetropolitan.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely incredible. Like I'm a huge fan of his stuff. Like my bookcases are full of his work. I've got all the Transmetropolitan, the Boys. I've got Happy in issues, and he pops up. He did an amazing couple of pages in a spin off from Deceased, that DC storyline last year. That was a little like a 5 page bit of John Constantine stuff, which was just awesome. It was like get this guy drawing Hellblazer like now. But yeah, I just tweeted him. Like I'd been trying to get someone really cool for the cover. I'd had a couple of people who knew some quite exciting names reach out to people for me, but trying to match up like the deadlines and when people had time was quite difficult. And I was just like, screw it. I'm just going to try tweeting Derek Robertson, like not even like a DM or anything, just a public tweet. So like, hey, here's this series we're doing. I think it's really cool, and we'd love you to do the cover. Let me know if you're interested. And like 2 days later, I got a DM from him just being like, sure, here's my email. Let me know what the deal is with it, and I'll take a look and see if we can make it work. And yeah, and it's happened. And he sent me his rough pencils for the page yesterday. So I think within the week we're going to have it pretty much ready to go off and be coloured, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's the thing. I think a lot of people don't quite get about comic book artists, things like that. Is that, or just about creatives in general? Is that the really really good ones love what they do and they love to get involved with stuff, be it big or small. I mean, I remember getting when I was in university, I did screenwriting, and we had a guest lecturer who done this short film with John Hurt, back when that legend was still alive. And they just randomly sent something out to his agent, just like, hey, we're working on short films, small thing. I don't suppose Mr. John Hurt would like to be involved. And they got back with saying, yes, okay.
That's amazing.
And because that can happen.
What uni did you go to?
For my undergrad, I went to Southampton Solent University, and for my master's degree, I went to Edinburgh Napier University.
Oh, okay.
This was at Southampton.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I did script writing for film and TV at Bournemouth. I was wondering if we'd crossed over.
Oh, now that is the one we had we had the rivalry with them, as far as I remember. I mean, I didn't care about it because I'm a human, I'm an adult. But we had the rivalry with them.
yeah, I guess so. The two South Coast script writing courses going head to head. I can't think of a less kind of aggressive and likely to get into some kind of gang war group of people than people on a script writing course. But yeah, I mean, if it had gone online, there'd have been some serious shade thrown back and forth in some messages.
It would be almost as bad as the 1973 dust-up between the lower Tadfield stamp collectors and the upper Tadfield stamp collectors.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what we're dealing with.
Oh, God. But it is interesting how many people are willing to do stuff just out of the joy of the project, just out of creative. And it helps when you've got a writer like yourself who's got a clearly great idea and the ability to execute it properly, and that can be very appealing for people.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. I'm very happy with the story, but I'm not kidding myself in terms of the real draw for the project being all the amazing guys we've got on art. But yeah, just my experience in general with the comics community has just been amazing. Like the types of people that will take time to talk to you. Like I was chatting with Shelley Bond, the amazing editor from Vertigo and Black Crown, about the project, and she was giving me some advice and kind of gave me a few different people to speak to. I had a bit of a chat with Jimmy Palmiotti as well, and just like Derek Robertson's so nice, like messaging back and forth, Gary Erskine, Shaky Kane, all these people who have had like these big successes in like what I guess we think of as like the major comics. And just, yeah, everyone's so nice, even just down to the amount of people that will kind of take your project on online and always be liking and retweeting everything. Like, for getting people to see the campaign, everybody like retweeting stuff and things like that. It's like so important.
It is, and I mean, because every, for want of a better word, veteran member of the comics publishing scene, be it mainstream or indie, every single one of them, whether it's been I've interviewed them or just talked to them at a comic convention, has always been so nice and so lovely, because it is a really supportive community. It's usually the executives at the top that aren't necessarily the nicest, but we won't go into that now. So that's all the artists, and goddamn, there's a whole bunch of them. But that's not the only draw for this book for you, Capers. We talked about there's all sorts of content, it's a great story, it's got great artists, but there's also something else. Just let the Capers know what prestige format is, in case they don't know.
Yeah, prestige format, I found out, is quite a hotly debated naming kind of way to describe a comic, as people have different ideas. But really, it's kind of prestige format started with Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns. So if anyone has got the originals of those, then you'd have an idea. But I think stuff like Gotham by Gaslight was prestige format as well. And basically, it's kind of a bit like a mini trade paperback. So it'll have like a proper, firm cover, as opposed to being so floppy, and higher page quality. And yeah, just overall, it's just a bit of a higher quality package than your average kind of floppy comic.
And yeah, it really shows that you're putting a lot of care into the quality of the book, beyond the story, the actual physical quality, because this is a book that people are going to have physically, and so they want it to be in good nick. And I always think that's a great draw. I mean, I don't really care if a trade paperback on a occasion I manage to afford to get one is floppy or shit, but it helps that I'm getting something good for my money. It really shows that the creators care.
Yeah, I guess, I feel a big responsibility to all of the artists on the comic. Like, they've done such a great thing by all getting involved, and like the pages these artists have been delivering are absolutely out of this world. Like, I think one kind of benefit from having so many different people all on it and sharing their work is that it's natural that a little bit of like kind of competitiveness, or just wanting to impress each other, comes up. So it's like everybody is just putting in their absolute best. So I wanted it to look as good as possible, and obviously as well deliver as nice a product as possible for all of the people that back the book. So yeah, it felt like I just wanted to do something a little bit more special than just your standard comic.
Yeah, I mean, the artwork you've got on the Kickstarter page looks amazing for everyone. You've credited the artist so people know which one is different, and it looks so, what's the word I'm looking for? Not lurid necessarily, but vibrant. It looks like it's going to be a really special just piece of art to have. Just
I definitely think
beyond reading, beyond enjoying the story, and beyond enjoying the artistry.
Yeah, for anybody who is into art, is into comics, like, forgetting the bit where I wrote it, then I think it's an amazing thing to own. Like, you've got 28 of the best artists going, all having contributed, plus these pin-up artists that we've also got working on the book. And I think everybody's really had fun diving into the, like you've mentioned a bit, like the Kirby crazy sci-fi aspect. Like, you'll see, although I tried to keep a consistency with the characters and like the layout of the building and the furniture and stuff like that, I've kind of let the guys have fun just going a bit wild with the colors they want to use. So I'm not like, every scene it has to be a blue wall or whatever. If you want to be like there's some kind of giant red light outside the building.
Was light fuchsia, not lavender.
Yeah, at the beginning I did have to do a bit of I kind of had to furnish the apartment by going on a load of catalog websites and finding the different furniture that I wanted people to put in there. Not because I was particularly passionate about what the furniture would be like, but just so that stuff kind of looked the same and you didn't have everything being massively different. But yeah, for the colors and stuff like that, we've let people really just go to town and have fun. Like, Shaky's colors are proper Kirby inspired, and you'll see like Craig Patton's page has this beautiful kind of purple wash over the whole thing. Andy W. Clift has a real kind of Silver Agey vibe, and he's gone for that with the colours as well. So yeah, I think it stands out.
Yeah, we talked about that a lot when he was on the show many moons ago, and I think actually he was the one who actually told me for the first time an art style that I knew very well, but I didn't know the name for, the Kirby Crackle. I'd never heard that term until he told me. I don't think.
Okay, yeah, no, I love a bit of Kirby Crackle. We discussed that a little bit when he was talking about his page, that he wanted to really have some fun with that.
I mean, if they ever actually getting around to do a Silver Surfer movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I want them to somehow bring the Kirby Crackle to life visually. I don't know how they would do that, but I hope they find a way to do it. I need that in my life.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like if you saw that Into the Spider-Verse film, like the art style and approach to that was so amazing. Like I'd love to see a really Kirby-inspired film done in that kind of style. Would be really cool. But I know that they've got Tom King, the Batman writer. He's been doing a feature film script for a New God series because he did the Mr. Miracle, 12-issue limited series a couple of years ago, and so they tapped him to write this Kirby-inspired New God series. So maybe we'll get the chance to find out if they're going to go full Kirby Crackle or not in the next couple of years.
Yeah, because I mean, Into the Spider-Verse was animated, and obviously the only way they could really show it was CGI, which you could argue is a form of animation. In fact, I would. Lion King. But it would be very interesting to see that. But I mean, we still got it in comics, and that's more than enough for me for the moment. And so, and obviously people have really taken a shine to this idea of yours, and that's why you've got 5,000 quid in the Kickstarter already.
Yeah, it seems to be going well. I mean, I guess I had pretty high hopes for it, knowing the kind of fan bases that a lot of people had coming into the comic. So I was hoping that people who'd followed them on other projects would kind of hop over to us and be excited about what we were doing. But you've always kind of got that you talked about the gremlin earlier. You've always got that kind of gremlin that's like, there's a lot of people counting on you for this. Imagine if it just absolutely tanks and you're struggling to try and get to the goal. But luckily that hasn't happened, which has been nice. And yeah, we've gone through 4 stretch goals now. And I think shortly after this, I'll be announcing the next stretch goal. But I guess as this isn't going to be live for a little bit, I can give you a little heads up. And that's that the artist Warwick Fraser Coombe, Coombe, is going to be doing the next stretch goal as a pin-up that everybody who backs the book will get. And if you check him out, he's an absolutely phenomenal artist.
Yeah, I mean, okay, now I'm going to have to do research into him, goddamn. But no, I'm fine to do that. I mean, because we're recording Capers on the Thursday before this gets released. So it'll be out by next Wednesday, right?
Yeah, I think pretty much this evening I've got a nice little bit of design, a little logo talking about it, put together by my designer. So I'll probably be posting that in the next couple of hours.
So I won't say you heard it here first, Capers, but I heard it first. So that's
Yeah.
something. I'm pleased with that. I feel so special.
Oh yeah, there you go. That is what is that? Like, I guess it's because it's an exclusive right now to you, but by the time it's released, it won't be an exclusive anymore. Where does it feel? Where does it fit in the terminology of the media?
I think it fits into
Like
wibbly wobbly, exclusively,
a throwback exclusive. Yeah, a throwback exclusive, or
I don't know. It's like if you tell someone something's going to happen, but they're halfway around the world in another time zone.
Yeah, it's
I don't
definitely got
know,
that
some
vibe.
sort of quantum mechanic temporal thing. I don't know. Point says that sounds amazing. Can't wait for Capers to be able to go in that. Capers, the link will be in the show notes. You can go and check it out right now. There is plenty more stretch goals I'm sure you could come up with, and there's plenty of opportunities for people to contribute. You've got several different rewards for people who pledge.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you could just buy the comic physically or digitally, but then we've created a bunch of pretty cool merch ideas. One of the ones I like is that we've got a quarantine calendar. So you'll be able to get like a 2020 calendar with art from the comic on every single month that looks really nice. We've been selling a lot of the original art, but most of that's gone. But I have just added up that Derek has said it's okay for us to sell the original inked page of his cover. So yeah, that's gone up there as a super special reward for any big spenders who like fine comic art. And we've got a couple of posters which I haven't got the images up on the campaign for because they're massive spoilers. But they're going to be a couple of the pages from the book which are kind of like splash pages, which are just absolute mayhem. Kind of, like you get posters of just a building it's all twisting and turning around, and it's a bit psychedelic, I guess. Again, so a couple of things like that are going to be going
It's
on the
sort
posters.
of what I'm thinking of something like Salvador Dali's New York.
Yeah, that kind of thing. It's I think definitely one of them's going to be by Clark Bin, and anyone who bought Frank at Home on the Farm knows that when it comes to detail, Clark's got an absolutely mad attention span to be able to sit down and just draw the craziest scenes. So yeah, there's a couple of really cool pages that we're going to use for the posters. So I would say anyone who likes to put a bit of mad art on their walls, then those would be ones for them to go for.
I mean, I'm not really one for mad art on my walls. What have I got on my walls now? I'm just looking around the room where I'm staying at my parents', and I've put a few things up. I've got a poster for Into the Spider-Verse, a poster for Kubo and the Two Strings, that movie that I love that no one talks about. I've got some artwork that I've had I commissioned from a friend of mine in university of Psylocke from X-Men and Y the Last Man.
Oh,
I
nice.
fucking love Y the
Yeah,
Last
that's
Man.
probably my favorite
A big
series ever.
It's one of my favorite things that I've ever read. Like Brian K. Vaughan, I like him as a writer, but I don't like a lot of his other stuff. But I love Y the Last Man, and I hear they're making a TV show. I'm gonna hold my breath. It's still probably won't be as good as the comics, but maybe not. Won't hold my breath. But anyway, and I've got a big. I don't know where did I. Oh yeah, so I've got this big tapestry hanging of like a picturesque Chinese village that I got from my grandparents' attic. I don't know why my grandparents have it. I don't know why I decided to take it. This was many years ago. All I know is, at the bottom, it says, presented by the Chinese People's Liberation Army.
Oh, okay. It sounds like you might have a bit of an interesting story in the background there. Some kind of wartime support from the family.
My grandfather is the former air secretary for the RAF and a former air vice marshal of the RAF and has worked with the SAS. I'm scared to ask him.
Okay, so yeah, you're kind of either hoping that they did something really good or else they've just stolen something from someone who did do something really good.
I don't know. I think if they stole something from like China or Chinese ambassador or something like that, like they wouldn't hiding it in the attic, like from their house in Tewkesbury. Like no, I don't think that's good. I'm sure it'll be fine. But that's what I was. So I don't really have any mad art.
But you seem to like
I
colourful
really
stuff.
should do, because considering we're beginning into.
Sounds like a lot of colourful stuff, and yeah, I think they're going to be pretty kind of psychedelic, bright pieces of work.
I mean, the most colourful thing I've got is one other poster, which is of this short film that I was in when I was doing my master's degree, called Daphne's Omnipotent Wednesday, and it's a beautiful piece of art about a woman standing in front of the Grim Reaper, who, by the way, was played by me.
Oh, that's a nice memory there.
I say it was played by me. I wasn't the body of it. I was just the voice. Because can't you tell by my super buttery voice that I could be... Fuck you, Kat Dennings. I can be death.
Yeah, well, I mean, you obviously...
We've gone off the rails slightly. Anyway, so there's not really much we can talk about when it comes to quarantine without going to spoilers, because I don't want to go into spoilers because I want people to kind of buy this. I want people to back this. I want people to get all sorts of awesome stretch goals, and I want them to go and experience the story full hand. I really want to read this. You've tickled my anticipation gland somehow, and I must have it. I must own it.
Oh, well, that's good. I mean, in terms of, without avoiding spoilers too much, it's definitely people that like David Cronenberg kind of body horror stuff. You've got some of that kind of crazy fun sci-fi, and even just like there's a lot of comedy in it. Like Frank at Home on the Farm, my previous series, there's a bit more comedy in it than I think is maybe obvious at the beginning. Like some of the stuff in there is kind of purposefully meant to be a little bit silly and fun. But this is much more kind of outwardly funny, and a lot of the dynamics between the family, like when they're get kind of losing their rag with each other in the house and things like that. There's definitely, it's a fun book. Like I don't, because of everything that's going on and the title, I don't want people thinking this is going to be some kind of like regurgitation of the news or anything that's happening. Like it's definitely like a book that you should be able to have a lot of fun reading.
That was my fear when I first heard about it. I thought, okay, this could be very interesting. Because, I mean, but at the same time, we don't want... Because, I mean, we've all had that idea for that as script. My one was titled Love in the Time of Coronavirus. But that's not what we necessarily need. And I think you've given us something that we might actually need for a change. And it does look at... And it's interesting you say about mentioning Frank at Home on the Farm, because Frank at Home on the Farm, at least for me, the characters in this story feel, ironically, less isolated because they're in such close quarters. Granted, they're in a different dimension now, but all the same. And I think people might sympathize, empathize with that a bit more than you might think. I think this is going to be really interesting, especially now. But having said that, when do you plan on releasing this? When does this plan to go out?
So we've got 18 days left as of today of the Kickstarter. I'm not sure what that's going to be when you actually release this. And if you can do the maths quickly.
I cannot do the maths quickly. I have to add up using my fingers.
Okay.
18. Today's Thursday. 18. Friday.
Carry the 2.
Wednesday. 12 days.
12 days. So there'll be 12 days left when your lovely listeners are hearing this. And then I guess I want to get it turned around pretty quickly. The only thing is going to be me getting back to England, although actually I don't necessarily have to do that for this one. The problem I had with getting the physical copies of Frank out to people of number 4, which just got released a few weeks ago, is that I've got all of like issues 1, 2, and 3 at home at my mum's house, and I live in Spain. Whereas with this, because it's only one issue, there's not going to be the same issues with no issues with getting the issues out to people. So I'd expect people to be receiving this by the time it's all finished, all the design work's done and been put together, printed and posted out. It's going to be around about September time probably that people will actually be getting it in their hands.
And hopefully this situation we're all in will have mostly died down back by then. Although if you watched the news lately, you might not think that, but let's not think about the future. Let's live in blissful ignorance just for the time being. And of course, as you say, this won't affect digital content. People will get their digital content fairly promptly, right?
Oh, yeah. The digital stuff will be, I mean, we're over halfway done with the comic already in terms of actual finished pages. So I would expect that I'd be kind of finishing up the comic come the start of next month, and then it just takes a little while for all the Kickstarter funds to clear, and you have to chase people for surveys for putting the backer's name in the back of the comic, which always takes a little bit. But I wouldn't be surprised if we're getting this to people in July, the digital files. Plus, for anybody who is looking for stuff to read, for anybody who's looking for stuff to read, we're also doing a kind of a creator's back catalogue tier where you can get like 22 comics written or drawn by all the different people working on the book, and all that stuff obviously already exists. So as soon as the campaign is finished, then if you back that tier, then you could have 22 comics on their way to you to give you something to read whilst you sat around the house.
We need that. We need that. I've basically been spending my time since March, whenever the fuck this started. I've lost track of all time. It's devolved to the point where I eventually started having full-on conversations with my parents' dog. And let me tell you, Pepper is not much of a talker.
I wish I had a dog. I tried to get one earlier on in the quarantine. I got in touch with some of the rescue centres around Granada, where I live. But my problem was that I don't drive, so I couldn't go and pick up a dog. But I was very much like any dog that needs looking after, that's having a tough time, I'm ready to take them on for the extent of the lockdown and potentially beyond that. But I was unable to make it a reality.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, maybe you'll get lucky and lure that cat over one day.
Yeah. See, once it gets really hungry and it comes round to the slightly hard cheese, then it will be mine.
You shall be mine, kitty. Never. Anyway, so that's basically all we have to talk about. Unless there's anything else we haven't mentioned you want to talk about regarding quarantine.
No, I don't think so. I think we've done a pretty good job of covering everything. So yeah, I think just keep an eye out for all the new stretch goals that we've got coming. And if people can please just keep sharing the campaign, then that will be wonderful.
Well, there will be a link in the show notes, Capers, so get it clicking and get it back in on the Kickstarter. There's plenty more information there, and you'll be able to see for yourself just how much this is really worth backing. And on that note, I think we're going to end the show. Thank you very much, Jordan, for joining us today.
No problem at all. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. And if you enjoyed the show, Capers, please tell your friends. Shout it from the rooftops! And if you haven't already, go back and listen to some of the other super episodes, like, well over 50 episodes ago, when we last talked with Jordan about Mad Robot Comics. Oh, that reminds me, Capers, it's our 150th episode! Woo! Thus ends our announcement about the 150th episode. But you can listen to the show on iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, or at podcapers.com. If you want to get in touch with us, suggest show topics, or maybe come on the show yourself, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AP2HYC. Thank you very much to Dan Harris for our logo, the lovely microphone, the red and blue 3D glasses, those are mine. And thank you for listening. This has been Podcapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. Cue the music!